3. Okay guys, we're going to do basic pruning cuts 101, right? So we've talked about our 3 types of cuts. Are heading cuts, thinning to a lateral, and thinning, right? So this is an apple tree, an actual apple. And apples grow with spurs, so we have to know that about apple trees. And again, that's just, we always identify the tree first because sometimes that'll dictate how we prune things. So what I want to show you here is that's a spur, that's a spur, this is a spur. See how it's all stunted? We talked about spur branching in a bunch of classes. These are spurs. You want to keep those. You want to promote those as much as possible with any fruits, pears, apples, that type of thing. So a heading cut, right? A heading, we're just going to come in here, we're going to find a lateral bud, and we're going to cut down to it, right? You never make heading cuts on trees, but I'm demonstrating it, right? So if we want to thin to a lateral, let's say I want to take this branch, I want to cut it back to this lateral branch. I'm going to cut it here. Now here's our rule for 1/4 of an inch above and on an angle, right? So it's 1/4 of an inch on this side and it's on an angle that way. If I cut it closer, as this branch got bigger, it'd be apt to tear out. So we don't want to do that. We want that little bit of phloem and xylem on top of the branch that we're cutting. So that's to a lateral. If I wanted to thin its branch, this is point of origin, right? So let me just point. So for this branch here, right, this branch goes all the way back here, here, here. To thin it would be back to here. All these other ones are laterals. This one to thin, if I followed it back, I'd go here, here, I'd go all the way down here. Technically, this goes all the way to here for a thinning cut, right? So more realistic, what I might do on here is I might cut this one off, just thin this, excuse me, to get these two right together. I'd thin this branch because they're growing together. And actually, this brings up a good point. So look at how I'm holding my pruners. Hopefully you can see this. If I come in here with this, like this, see how my anvil is against the branch? I can't get close, right? That's as close as I can get. But if I turn my pruners around and I can actually prune upside down, or you could get on the other side of the plant, now I can cut closer. So how you have your pruners makes a big difference in how you clean cut. Because the way I cut that before, let's do another one. Whoops, whoops, this way. That's too much of a stub. That's not good. That's not going to heal. That's going to die off. I'm going to flip my pruners around, come back this way, and now make my cleaner cut, right? So let's keep going back. If I want to remove this branch, I'm thinning to here. So now what I've done in this little area is I've opened it up a bit so there's more light. This tree is way dense. We pruned it 2 years ago. We took out a bunch in the middle. I don't know if you can see some water sprouts or epicormic shoots coming off the larger branches. We're going to kind of talk about those later, but the big branches hanging off, I don't have my ruler to point, but okay, and we're going to go back. One more cut we're going to talk about is a 3-cut method one more time. So if we're looking at this branch again, right, if I wanted to thin it, this particular one, if I went to here, that'd be a thinning to a lateral, right, because it originates here. So I'm going to thin it, but now I'll go ahead and show you how to thin it all the way. All right, so let's do our 3-cut method on this. So I'm going to kind of point out, this is a little gnarly here, right? We've got our bark ridge, right? We know that. And we're going to call this huge bulge in here the collar. So we do not want to cut into that collar, as we talked about in class. That area between the bark ridge and the collar, if you cut into either one of them, it minimizes how well it heals, and it can be subject to later decay. So we're going to make our first cut, our first of the 3 cuts underneath here. And then we're going to come out here just about a 1/2 inch past it and cut that off. This branch will drop off. And then I'm going to come back here and make my final cut right between the bark ridge and the collar, which is called the shoulder. So let me do this real quick. My first cut under, about 1/3 of the way through. If you go too far, the branch will pinch your saw. Now I've come back here. I'm going to come back on the top about a 1/2 inch past. Hopefully this doesn't fall on my camera, woman. And it pops right off. So you can see that little ledge. Sometimes if it's a bigger branch, it'll actually pop. So that's my first cut. My second cut is from above. And now my 3rd cut is going to be my final cut. And this is going to be a tricky one. I probably shouldn't have picked this one, because if you see here, I can't get my saw in without damaging this branch, right? I want to cut right along this line. You can clearly see that, right? So I'm going to come from underneath, which makes it a little awkward where I'm at, but I'm going to line up my saw first so I don't come out. If I did it like this, I'd come out too high. If I did it like that, I'd go into the shoulder. So I'm going to eyeball myself, make sure I'm looking good. A maple or apple is very hard wood, so it's a little tough to cut. But I'm going to slow way down when I get to the end because I don't want to tear it. I'm going to hold this up a little bit and finish it. So that's right about, you can see right where that collar is. I'm outside the bark ridge. I'm outside the shoulder, and I've got, or the collar, excuse me, and I've got, that's the shoulder. So that's a perfect cut. And I just thought of one more thing I want to show you. So we cut the 1/4 inch above. We did the 3-cut method. I can't remember what the other thing was. I guess, wait, I don't want to cut it if I can edit this out. What was it? I just thought of it when I was cutting this.